Welcome to One Small Step. This is the FMC findmecoaches.com PodClass series. It's so named because we aim with each episode to leave our audience with at least one small step that will take them nearer to achieving their goals, reaching their full potential. I'm Colin Newbold and I'm the founder of FMC, which is a coaching platform where you can find certified and experienced professional coaches who work with clients across a wide variety of areas. And the format of these episodes is an interview that I record with a selection of our coaches. Hi there. This episode features one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. This is a guy called Philip Crocker. Welcome, Philip.
Flattery will get you everywhere, Colin, you know.
Well, Philip is head of coaching at findmecoaches.com. And we go back a long way. We've worked together for many, many years. He's been a very useful stalwart to me in terms of coaching. But for this audience, Philip, I know you're skilled in a number of different but related coaching areas. But for this PodClass, you've chosen to talk about your work as an executive and leadership coach. Now, what makes you choose that?
Well, I think that one of the things that really resonated with me from one of yours and my early conversations was your desire to create better bosses. And I really feel that that's such an important focus in the workplace. We spend an awful lot of time at work. And that actually the people who influence how people experience the workplace are the big people, the CEO and the senior team, etc. So executive coaching is the sensible place to, I think, have the most impact on the whole organization.
So what type of people are your typical clients, Philip?
I do work with a lot of different ones, but I think there's two probably. There's those who who have got ambition and they're technically very able in whether it be as lawyers or engineers or whatever, and they're thinking about where they want to be, etc. And I think often they're thinking these days, do I really want to go up there and sell my soul to the organization? And because they see how people up there are affected by being in that place. So those are the other people, the more senior people from the CEO and the team. And I think that for the younger people, it's about sort of possibly sowing a seed. Well, how about you go up there and change it, to make it more effective, actually. So hence better bosses. But equally, so that's from the bottom up, if you're coming up through the organization. And then from the top down, all the research says that, companies are obsessed with values. That's all they talk about. It used to be mission statements and stuff, and now it's values. And that nobody believes them, apart from how they experience the values of the person directly above them, their line manager. So I think that a lot of the focus is about helping executives just to be themselves in the context, and be human, actually. It goes without saying, that technically they've got everything they need, but it's about being themselves and being able to connect and influence the rest of the system.
Yeah, interesting. Now, in terms of coaching, how would you describe your coaching style?
Well, I don't know about me describing it, but other people tell me that the ones who choose to work with me, they like. There's a certain level of informality, I think, about it. But the thing that I find most important from what people say is that they want to know what to do differently. Ultimately, whatever your conversation is, it's about ending with, okay, well, knowing what I know now, this is what I'm going to do differently. And it's probably starting something, stopping something, probably starting to listen more, starting to be more present, do less talking perhaps, or do more of something else. And it's about clarifying, well, things are going well here, but what would make it even better? So this is this shift. And then it's about coming up with a plan, which is the do more, do less, do more of it, etc., in order to create this outcome you're looking. So it's all about moving forward personally, and it's not all about that individual. It's about them and how they interact with the rest of the people system in which they work.
Yeah. Interestingly, I know that you're a fan of the Enneagram system, I guess. What would you say about that? How would you describe that?
Well, I obviously I am equipped to work with most psychometrics. Most of them are broadly based on Jung's work, who was inspired by Freud. So this is psychology. It's still pretty new, actually. Enneagram's 3,000 years observation of people, and it's a very whole system. So it's about revealing one's personal preferences, which is probably akin to personality, and that's what distinguishes. There's 9 types. Ennea means 9, gram means written down. And it's the motivation for using one's energy that differentiates all of us. I'm a 2, which is the considerate helper, and it looks like I'm just here to help and be considerate and everything. But actually something else is going on, and that is I want recognition. So every type has a undercurrent about something. And as we sort of integrate that into our whole being, which is about accepting who we are, really. And in the context of a 2, it's about, look, there's something that I'm noticing in this, how we relate. I'm just going to give it away. So in a coaching context, that's usually, may I make an observation? And all you're doing is observing what you're seeing. It's not, not making it up. You're just seeing. I notice that you're saying this, and you're also saying that on your, and this, etc. So you're making, and you're offering that mirror back to the person. And usually what happens is that the person becomes more aware, and they say, oh, I see. And they may discover that in that context, it's less useful. So you can stop doing that. That's something to stop doing. But it comes from the reflecting back. And Enneagram has got all these different types. It's got the 7, which is the enthusiastic visionary, Colin.
You say that's me, isn't it?
I think so. And these are the people who are just on the next hill. And, they're already there thinking about something. These are the entrepreneurs. These are the enterprising people who work like that. Often quite annoying, actually, because they're interested in this, and they're interested in that, and they're interested in the other. But when they focus on the thing that really gives them joy, actually, it comes from inside and outside, and that creates the most extraordinary energy, I think. And that's possibly a definition of a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So there's other types, but that's what interests me. But the real thing that Enneagram reveals is that some of this is innate, like personality, and some of it's learned. The most difficult lesson is unlearning, in my experience. And so these unlearning habits and what have you. But it also reveals, well, look what else you've got access to. So in a team setting, and I use it with teams, you can see, wow, we get all of this aligned with where we want to get to, and the energy is aligned. Just think, and that's called high performance.
Stopping us. Yeah, interesting. I mean, actually, I guess we've talked about this in the past, and there's an overuse of any of these Enneagram styles, right? That can be actually counterproductive.
Most definitely. I mean, if you just take, everybody's obsessed with the binary: good, bad, helpful, Democrat, Republican, etc. We've got it big time. We've got it around at the night. And the truth is that most of life is this and that. And that actually what's useful is about understanding the context. So for me, coaching, a frame which is really powerful is to have a conversation around, well, what's in it for me? That's for the coachee. What's in it for us? Wherever you draw us, the closer, the family or my team. And then what's in it for others? So that's contextually the system in which we're operating, the community in which we're operating. And I think that that's really about, and it's about holding all of those things as we make our decisions, which requires probably slowing down because there's a lot of complexity going on there. And it often requires a conversation. Well, what's in it for you? Well, one way of finding that out, if you don't know, which is quite a good strategy, is to ask a question. So ask is, and I think a lot of coaching is learning how to have better conversations in the context to get better outcomes.
Yeah. That phrase you used, I once heard an American describe it. WIIFM is the one radio station we're all tuned into. I thought it was lovely. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
I guess you've done a lot of work in your time before coaching. Can you just very briefly, Philip, describe the sort of journey you took to get to be a coach?
Yes, I when I was very young, the nuns. I went to my very first school, where primary, pre-primary. The nuns said, "I have a twin sister who's very bright and very clever and always marching on," and uh, and the nun said, "Well, never mind. Perhaps he'll be quite good with his hands." And they weren't right about that either. You do not want me to put your shed up, is one of the things I say. So I learned by doing. And I joined HSBC. It was the last year before you had to be a graduate to join their graduate trainee scheme. It was the executive trainee scheme, and the chairman joined that one. Went right the way through the system. And I worked in London, Paris, and Singapore. Banking wasn't for me. You probably don't want me to run your finances. I ultimately did half a degree in international marketing and French. I'm very interested in how we connect usefully, but I found it very difficult going backwards to be amongst a load of younger people and not earning. So I joined a guy who just started a contract cleaning company, and we did that for 12 years and grew it into a support services business. I was always interested in what motivated people. So I brought a psychologist in, industrial psychologist, to help us work out, well, what motivates these different people. And that's really where this whole thing about people and their motivation was engendered. Did another business in the 90s with another guy, again, similar sort of context, but with banks and building societies. The internet was coming in. We used that to apply what we did. We re-engineered the process. It took a month to get what we were doing sorted. And by the time we finished, it took 24 hours. And the reporting was before and after was in the cloud effectively. And the banks wouldn't touch the internet with a barge pole at the time. So, I mean, it was a very new stage. So all these new things I found fascinating, how they work out. And then in the early noughties, I had a marketing business which was helping organizations come together to understand respective needs and meet them. It's called selling, or business development. And then 15 years ago, I was ill unexpectedly and had 4 months off. And I had one of those, what do you really like doing? And somebody introduced me to coaching, which I'd never really heard of apart from in sport. And I trained for about 3 years as an executive coach and applied the learning in different contexts. And it's the best thing I ever did, So that's a bit longer than you probably asked for. But anyway, that's how I got to here. And I've been working with teams, senior people. Strategic facilitation it's all contextual to where does this organization want to get to. That's the bit that I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in the theoretical leadership development stuff. It doesn't really interest me. It's applied and useful. So that's the sort of space that I like to occupy.
And that's basically what FMC is all about. It's about making sure that the coaching is in alignment with, and perhaps has a line of sight to, the organizational objectives, whatever they might be. So when you first start working with a coachee, what things do you do? How do you approach them to ensure they're comfortable?
Well, it's interesting. I work with one of the large consulting houses, global, one of the premier ones, with their own people, and they can book 3-hour sessions a year, and they can choose a subject, sort of a drop-down menu, which is very broad. But basically, it's about them really clarifying what's in it for them, aligned with the organization. So it does include career change. Sometimes people are leaving the organization. Some people are onboarding. Some people are in the middle. They want to promote to partner or something. And so, in other words, it's just possibly an isolated 1 hour. It's amazing what you can get done in an hour. I think, we're obsessed with on and on and on and on, which sometimes we do need that, and obviously sometimes there's a need for that. But I think a lot of change happens in a very cathartic way in the moment, actually. You might not want to hear that, but I think it's true, actually. But equally, some change is over time, so it requires that. So the first thing I ask is, well, for this time, what do you want to end up with? How do you want to finish this session with? What would be most useful? And usually people will say, in that context, they'll say, well, just a few tips or some things I could do differently in order to. So, and then they give us the context. I said, well, how did you get to here? So it's pretty much what you just asked me. So they'll describe their context and what's going well. That would be my next question. And what would make it even better? Who in this people system that you find yourself do you need to have more influence with? Because in order to get to where you want to get to, it's who needs to be convinced. So it's about understanding, if you give them what they're looking for, fun enough, they're going to nod their head, So it's a fairly straightforward process, but people often don't think it's that. They think it's the thing. And actually the thing is assumed. That's a technical ability, I mean, if my surgeon is going to take my appendix out, I want him to know how to do, or she, how to do that. Are they kind? Yes, I also want someone kind, because all the research says that if I have a bond, if you like, with this person who I'm working with, that creates a belief that this will work. It will. And I think this is the placebo effect, and we only know a tiny bit about that. But a lot of coaching is about building that space which is safe. And so mentoring comes into this as well. I always encourage people before we finish a coaching program to think about, well, who would be a dream mentor? Who would be a dream person to keep this conversation going with? And they usually say Richard Branson. I say, well, no, I'm joking, but they do. Some of them do say that actually. But it's about identifying what would be a good fit. So a lot of this is about learning what's in it for me and recognizing it's not all about me.
Okay. You mentioned earlier there about, some things you would do at the end of a session, but if you're in a coaching program, Philip, where you've got a series of sessions planned, I mean, how do you action plan with the coachee at the end of a coaching session? What are some of the things you might do?
Well, I would just start before that, actually, because I think the key thing, I'm a member of the ICF, International Coaching Federation, so they've got a code of ethics. So the first thing is about chemistry. Can I connect with this person? Can they connect with me? And my only criteria is it the right time? Does this person, are they ready to engage? Because if they're busy with something else, maybe it's best to defer. So timing is key. And then it's about contracting. So it's agreeing, well, how do you want to experience this? Do you want me to be challenging? Do you want me to be, how do you want to do? And that's a conversation. And I think this is modeling line manager conversation, because development and progress is about that sort of conversation. It doesn't need to take long. And once we've agreed that, so in other words, what's in, what's out? Are we going to talk about family? Are we going to talk about your whole life or whatever? And then the role of the coach is to make sure we stay within the boundaries that we've agreed. Or if we start straying out, the role of the coach is to say, well, hang on, just to let you know, you just asked me to talk about your mother-in-law. Is that something you want to do? Whatever. So you're doing that. But in terms of the end game, I think it starts with this. Well, what's going well at the moment? As I said, what would make it even different? That is the destination. So at each session, we're checking in on how are we doing. How are we doing against it? So a calibration with, well, what's going well? What will make it even better? Well, it'd be even better if I was considered for promotion too. Okay. Who are the people involved? Yep. Okay. How far do you think you are in terms of influencing them? So this is a calibration in towards the end journey. And often what happens is you'll find, I don't know, session 3. Okay, the time is yours. We've agreed the context and the destination. It's up to you. What do you want to do? So what are you bringing to coaching today is the question. Often I would say most of the, I haven't got a clue. I haven't had time to think about it is usually what happens. But what actually emerges from, and you just reiterate, well, what's going well at the moment? What would make it? Well, I've got this person who's my reportee, who's just is a pain in the neck. I don't know how to. Oh, right, okay. And then we might go into their shoes to actually get them to perceive what's going on for that person this way. And so we're beginning, but all of it at each stage is contextualized within the destination. So the client who's paying for the coaching will say, look, this person is brilliant, we've got great potential, that we've got feedback, or they've been given feedback that they find it that whenever they've got to do a presentation, they go to pieces or something. So it could be something very practical like that, and so we work on that.
Yeah, I guess that's all good answer. I get that. I think that's a really great approach. Some pearls of wisdom in there, Philip. But what I was thinking more of, when people are asked what's the benefit of coaching, typically they will say, well, it's being held accountable. And I'm just wondering, in terms of homework, are you giving them assignments typically at the end of a coaching session?
Well, now we have the big question here, and I think it depends on the context, because they're all to-dos at the end of the day. There are things that I need to accomplish or whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of coaching which is very goal focused. If I'm honest, there's a place for that, and obviously there needs to be that, like the presentation or whatever it is. But it's not training. And what I'm hearing with your question is that this is about creating some kind of similarity, cloning sort of thing. And ultimately, in these people who have got the capacity to really influence this organization effectively, there has to be a freedom for them to be themselves. So it's about allowing that to emerge, holding them to account. I think the most important outcome is that they hold themselves to account, because the desired outcome is that they can do this for themselves. So my belief is, I believe you are a really effective coach of yourself, of your team, of your board, of the organization, if you're the CEO or the CFO or whatever, and maybe you could be even better. So what does that look like? So this is about stretch. And I know this is a bit of a hackneyed phrase, but I do think that the best coaching is transformation. It's not linear. It's absolutely to this place of quantum, where actually the belief is, I've got access to everything I need in order to get me and myself, my team, my board, my organization to where I want to get to. Whereas most goal setting is linear. I mean, that's just my thought.
Okay.
And I would say that's the definition of transformation. But obviously, within the program, there are incremental steps which will definitely be. And I think the best people to report, I mean, it's not my method, but stakeholder is where you, at the beginning, you check in with the key who's. Well, how's this going at the moment? Out of 10, what does it look like? Well, it's 4 out of 10. We need it to be 8. Okay, if it was 8, what would you be hearing? Golden question, Colin. What are we hearing? That's making it real, and then that gives you your absolute rock of progress against which. And so these other people are going to, I've noticed this person really is X, Y, Z. So I often would ask the coach, I said, how about you say to your line manager, to your boss, or to one of these people who are going to influence this progression that you're having coaching, and you're trying to work on this and this and this, and ask them for feedback. So this is practicing having an adult conversation. So many of our conversations are transactional, fearful, or whatever. And I think it's about being mature. This is mature means flourishing, fruitful. So anyway, you got me going now, Colin. This is my subject.
Just remind us what the golden question is.
The golden question is, if this person was performing in this place, where the destination, what would you be experiencing? What would you be hearing? What would you be seeing? So in other words, that's making it real. And it's the equivalent of the basketball player who shoots hoops without a ball. And their ideation, this is just do it. And we know that as you build this muscular memory and all the rest of it, the whole thing comes together. And I think that so many organizations really don't have a conversation about what does good look like in this season. The ones who are effective know exactly what this and it might be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year focus. but it's about that. And then everything else is aligned. Google, for example, use OKRs, objectives and key results. And the whole organization, from the top down, every single person has personal, individual, team, regional, territory OKRs, and they all align with this year's focus. And that helps people navigate what matters. And I think that's where you bring back this accountability within the organization.
I'm happy for you, Philip. I'm happy for you to share a bit more about your OKR work, because I know that's important to you.
Well, again, it sort of goes back to the nuns. Part of not being very effective is not knowing what to do, I think. And I think that what OKRs are, I mean, they come from Intel is the story. Intel, the chip manufacturers who slightly lost their way, were going to be outfaced by the competition. And the then CEO said, Andy Grove said, the 6 months focus is to see off the competition. And that was a sort of moonshot focus. Didn't matter what else happened. But wherever anybody was buying chips, they're going to have our chips and they're going to buy ours. So there was a very clear thing, even though it might not be the best one, it was there. And in the meantime, what they were really doing was shifting a whole load of things, but they were going from memory power to processing, because in that big shift of the early 80s into the 90s, what was happening was these were coming out and processing power was much more important than memory. It was just given, and chips were developing. And they brought this young guy in to help them navigate that as a plan. So they had the key objective and what needs to be in place. These are results to support this outcome of getting to the next place. And it's inspiration. This is qualitative and inspirational. The guy, it was very successful. The guy left who ran the project, and he went to an equity finance business and was asked in the early 90s to go and see this young tech company, had about 50 or 60 employees, who wanted investment. And they were very hungry, clearly very talented, very ambitious. They wanted revolution, the equivalent of revolutionizing coaching, Colin. And it was extraordinary. And they agreed to finance it. And this guy said, well, I want a seat on the board, various other things, and you're going to adopt this method of strategy, facilitating strategy and execution, called OKRs. That company was called Google. Mm-hmm. And loads of tech companies have adopted the same method for growth. Startups now, scale-ups the same. And actually, it's pretty prevalent everywhere. It's huge in the States, big in Germany. It's becoming pretty mainstream. The banks have adopted it. The consulting houses have as well. But if you think about it, what it really is, and the seminal book written about it is measure what matters. So that's measuring these key results that will give you the outcome. So it's this alignment thing. And actually, at the heart of it isn't really about, I mean, the techie companies like it because it's very tangible. But what it's really about is we've identified this as the destination, and these are the measurements. How's it going? Are we measuring the right thing? In other words, it's working on. It's an awareness of what matters. And within each area, department, territory, whatever, it's saying, well, we want to get to here. We've agreed a 12-month focus and a 3-month focus about what matters. And these are the things, OKRs. How are we doing? And you have to have a conversation to say, well, that's not working very well. Well, this isn't. We need to get it to 6. It's only 3. What are we going to do differently next week to get it there? And there's some very good books and case studies about this, which if you look online, John Doerr wrote Measure What Matters. But 86% of them fail. The same as consulting transformation project. Why? Yeah. Because they're not set up properly. And it's a human system. It's really about, I see you're not doing too well on that key result over there, because you can now work across the system with these key results. How can I help? That is the key. This is about collaboration and working together that so many organizations don't, because it's all about me. And therefore you have this and everything else. So I think at their best, they actually really facilitate better conversation. So it aligns with coaching. And it is okay. I mean, I had somebody contact me yesterday through LinkedIn, want to talk to me about OKR coaching. So it's another focus, but ultimately it is coaching, although a lot of people just treat it as a goal-setting scheme, and you drive the spirit out of it. That's the issue, I think. So I don't know if that helps.
Well, it does. I mean, we're about to embark on that journey with you for the FMC business, so I'm looking forward to that. Philip, this PodClass series, it's called One Small Step. So for anyone in our audience that may be challenged in some of the ways that you've been describing, if they were challenged in those ways right now, I mean, let's be more specific. Let's say I'm a new manager. I'm young. I've been promoted to run a team, and I'm feeling completely out of my depth. I mean, if you were to give a person like that a first easy step, to get going, what might that be?
Well, I would suggest that ideally the best would be to have a good conversation with somebody who they trust and who will listen to them. That isn't always obvious, actually. The ideal person in that context would be their line manager. And it would be actually to have a conversation with them and say, look, we're coming to the end of the year. I've been here a few months. I really want to be more confident next year. So I'm in a better place to help myself and others. So this could be interpreted as imposter syndrome, which we hear about, which is really that little voice that sits on our shoulder that says, who the hell do you think you are to do this? And actually really that's about a script that pops up because we've learnt it somewhere along the line. That's what I do. And the desired outcome is to master that voice and say, look, thank you. I know I could get too big for my boots, and thank you for just probably, it's called ego actually, but now shut up, get up so that I can. And I think that with the conversation with the line manager, which if we just take two areas, this is working in the business, that's working on the business. This is business as usual, and the stuff we've got to get done, and we do, and everyone does, from the CEO downwards, see everyone. But this is every so often we need to have a pause and we need to say, well, what's going well? What would make it even better? And that's the conversation I would suggest. That's the small step to say for next year, what's going well do you see and what would make it even better? In other words, it's not coming from them. It's coming from someone else who they trust. And it's one thing, two thing, possibly. Well, I'll tell you what, you always come in on Monday so ill prepared for the management meeting or whatever it is. How about on Friday we have a quick chat and or whatever it is. So it will be a thing I'm going to start with you less or more. But then, where would you calibrate me on that? Well, I need, out of 10, probably 4. So where do I need to be by the spring? 8. Okay, what do I need to do differently? This is a golden question. Is it okay? May I check in with you on that alongside the day-to-day? And now you've got a pathway towards, or a program, if you like, or methodology towards improvement.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. Thank you. Good tip. Well, Philip, thank you so much for doing this. I should point out to the audience that Philip's got his own podcast channel. He calls it Alongsider. Philip, where's that going to be accessible to people?
It's on all major platforms, so you can get it on Apple or Spotify. Just search Alongsider, and you should get it. And then we will have about 40 episodes by the end of this year. And they're very varied. There's something for everyone. So don't feel you've got to listen to them all. Just pick out something that catches your eye. But we've got lots of HR people who I have a huge respect for.
I enjoyed doing one with you myself. It was good.
You did. We even got Mr. Colin Newbold on it as well, which is great. And you really do get the flavour of the 7. We've tried to weave the Enneagram through it as well sometimes. So
that's nice.
I've got actually, I'm just as a matter of interest, just to finish. I've got somebody on the podcast. I'm recording it tomorrow. He is an engineer, worked at Rolls-Royce for a very long time, and was actually the person who went in and poured oil over troubled waters. He just had this extraordinary gift for getting that done. And he left and to become a coach. And so he was sort of an internal coach, became an external. Anyway, he looked after the supply chain. I mean, he had a big job within Rolls-Royce. They do jet engines and nuclear, what have you. And he joined this Japanese conglomerate approached him and said, "Would you come and work with us as internal? Do what you did here." And the first assignment was with the senior leadership team in Japan of this the main head office group, and the assignment was to teach them how to be crazy. And that is sort of about innovation. It's about thinking differently and everything else. And I just think all this stuff we're talking about is actually, it's really important and it's really worthwhile, but actually can be so dull. And I think we're very good at driving it out, the spirit of it, and actually can be joyous. And I've noticed on your podcast, several of your people have talked about joy, life, energy, that whole thing. And that's what we're about.
Yeah, nice. Philip, thank you for that. Brilliant talking to you as ever.
Thank you very much.
I wish you a really good, successful career. I know that it doesn't need a lot of embellishment. You're doing very well, but thank you for the time you've given me and our audience today.
Well, you're really kind. My mantra is always the best is yet to come. We have to live in hope.
All right, you take care. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found that valuable. You got something from it. Now, you may be looking for coaching in that area or a different area, completely unrelated to what was shown in the episode. The best place to go to find out more is our website, which is www.findmecoaches.com. You'll see it on the screen now. And you'll see a variety of coaches in very many different areas of coaching. So you may have an issue or a challenge or an event coming up, or maybe you've just had an interaction with somebody and you really need some help through coaching. So go to the website, have a look at the coaches we offer, the coaching niches that we operate in. And if you want to reach out, there is a form that you can fill in on the website. Alternatively, why not email us at info@findmecoaches.com, or why not call us? Our number is +44 if you're outside of the UK, 0203 988 6666. Once again, that's 0203 988 6666. Bye-bye now.